So that's exciting, you know? It took up a good chunk of my day, but it's very exciting. Tonight we're going to be playing Dungeon Hero. I need to generate a name, and that's what we're going to get started on. We have once we have a name in place, this character will come together really quickly. If you're a little confused on rules, I'd suggest watching the other Dungeon Hero stream where we played a little kobold named Nishmal. So we're going to once again generate ourselves a little name here. Sorry, one of the first names that came up out of the generator was Hole, which I don't think we're going with that one. Um, hmm. I like Marin. That's a good one. So our little guy's name this time is going to be Marin. Merrin. And of course we need 8 stats here. You know what? I just realized there is something off camera that, well, I guess it would technically be in shot here. There's something I forgot to do in the prep time. So, grab this blanket from off camera, and you will have to trust me when I say that this acts as a pop filter. There. Well, now you can't hardly see. How much worse or better is that? Do I need to just do something else? Actually, I have a better idea. For the pop filter, I'm going to do this, actually. I'm just gonna put a little mask on. We're gonna put a little mask, because we have I have a few fabric masks around for decoration. Atop my particular, when they have the masks that actually matter, the ones that filter. And so I will just use one of my fabric masks as a pop filter. So we need 8 stats. Obviously, one of them I think is just going to be equipment. And we'll assign these here in a second. I'm actually going to put this on the back of this page here. So we're going to go equipment, just for general preparedness, I'd say. I would say another really good Marin. Marin feels like kind of a halfling-ish name. I mean, in the sense of like D&D stole halflings from Lord of the Rings a little bit. Uh, I don't know. I'm gonna play a bard this time. I'm gonna say equipment of bardliness. We're gonna play a caster, a music-based caster, a harper, if you will. I've been reading a lot of Dragon Riders and Perrin lately, so that's what comes to mind. Um, what else? What else do we want for stats? Hmm, I would say maybe something like craftiness. Volume's a bit low. Hmm. There's not really much I can do for that other than scooching you all a little closer. How's that? A little better? I could also just speak up. It's a little echoey in here now that I've moved things around. I might have to throw some treatment up on this wall in particular. You know what? Actually, that's something I can do without impeding the camera, as it were. I don't like how much it's echoing in here. I need something for that back wall as actual treatment, but for now, we're just gonna kind of go with the flow. We're gonna do a little improvised draping here of a blanket sort. Well, if I can reach back there. See, this is what I get for not testing how things sound before I get started. But you know, sometimes Tuesday night stream has to act as the guinea pig, you know? That we'll have to do. I don't know that I can. I don't know that I have any other angles to do that from. So that we'll have to do. Um, Perhaps I'll come up with something a little more clever as time rolls on. I'll come up with something a little more clever than that before paper cuts, I'd say. I think alongside bardliness, I think we want something again, somewhat akin to dungeon delving that we gave Nishmal. Something that kind of like lets them puzzle out puzzles and get through scrapes and everything. So I'm gonna go. I think we keep dungeon delving. Uh, or maybe rather than dungeon delving, we go for something along the line of rather than directly dungeon delving, I feel like uh adventurer. Like literally, I think if we just say adventurer. So we have equipment, bardliness, adventurership. I feel like we need something that's like a personified, like it's a personality trait that we roll. Because bardliness is probably like how they're going to approach, making music for casting. But what about hmm? We need something that's like an inherent trait. I think let's just do wit. Honestly, I think that's fun. Wit rather than like wisdom out and out. Halfway there. I think we say. I think we say tinkering. Uh, Although that kind of has crossover. No, I'm gonna say tinkering. I feel like this is a bard who's like very adept at like also working with their hands broadly, and so they're like tinkering with little devices and the like. Tinkering. Uh, I feel like bardliness kind of gets across charisma, but like I almost want to have them roll like. Uh, so we've got a brain stat, we've got like a physical stat, we've got a stat that kind of gets across what they do, and what they do for adventurership, and then how they do it in bardliness. We have equipment for their general preparedness. Um, I almost want to have them have like a stat called like teamwork or something. Hang on, what else did we give? Okay, we've given them wit. Let's give them a personality trait, right? Alongside their bardliness. I feel like gregariousness. Like how audacious they are to be able to get away with things. 3, 6. We need two more. Um and we already did equipment, so like that rolls into preparedness. What kind of person is Marin? I think Marin is I think we lean into the halfling comparison that I made earlier. So we'll have halfling as a stat. And that's like how stereotypically halflingoid they are, I suppose. I don't know. I feel very drawn to be playing small characters with this game, and we need one more. We need one more. We already have tinkering, or I would go creativity. What's one more good stat? We kind of need one more like. Hmm. I want to go with one more like personality trait. Perhaps lean into what we did earlier with like bumbling or quick-witted or greedy with Nishmal and have like a stat that they are intentionally bad at. I'm gonna say I'm gonna say swiftness. I think that's fun and deliberately have them be not very swift because they're small, they're short. So swiftness we're putting at D6. Um Equipment, I feel like a bard is the type to not carry a lot of equipment, so I feel like they're very poorly prepared. So I'm going to put equipment at D6 as well. Um, I feel like we want to put. I want to put bardliness very high. I'm going to put bardliness at a 10. I'm going to put adventurership also. I'm gonna put gregariousness at a 10. They're very like, yes, I can get away with everything. Um, I feel like this character in particular, I want to play it away from the tropes we've kind of established with Nishmal, and I feel like this halfling is very halfling. They're very like stout and constitutional. So we're gonna put halfling at D12, um, which might come in handy if we run into a lot of combat. And then I want tinkering and adventurership at D8s, I think. Perhaps they're fresh off of like whatever, Bard College or Conservatory or whatever they've uh left, recently graduated, and so they're not the best adventurer in the world. And perhaps they were originally going to be some sort of like tinkerer or inventor, and then were forced into music, perhaps. And that leaves wit at a d6. So, unfortunately, this particular our little Marin here is not going to be improvising any lyrics off the top of their head, which is relatable. I'm also not great at that. Oh, really? Of course, the thing I have my rules on is refusing to work. Oh, disregard. Now it's working. Cool. I just had to lean over and look mad at it. So we are going to enter the fortress of the frost giant Jarl with our good friend Merritt here. Uh, so we start with 2d6 from the 2d6 from the location, and we start the game with a freezing snow d6. You stagger through the freezing snow, and in the darkness you see the faint glowing of a fireplace at an encampment. So we will roll d6 to see how far we go into. We immediately encounter steep slopes. So we're going to be rolling 2d6 for environment. I feel like with the descriptor of freezing snow and darkness, we're literally trying to uh, resist physically the cold of the snow and like make sure that we don't, go losing a finger or a toe. So we're rolling halfling as a sort of like constitution check, as it were. And then I feel like adventurership also really comes into play here. We are approaching an enemy camp, and so we want to approach this all carefully. So let's roll. Marin got a 7 and a 6, and the environment got a 6 and a 5. So we outroll the environment and keep going. So we're trudging our way up the steep slopes. There's a somewhat tall staff in the one hand of Marin as he goes, "Well, this certainly won't do. I need to not come any closer to this camp, and I'll simply climb up this hill the long way so they won't expect me coming." I've accidentally given Marin the same character voice as a character I'm playing in a D&D game right now, but it's fine. And he kind of trudges his way through the snow, the ice blasting back to hit him in the face, and we roll a d6 for movement. That's a 1. So we immediately discover a snow slide has visited itself upon our environment. So once again, we're going to be rolling halfling. And I think swiftness is the obvious choice here. We're trying to dive out of the way of this snow slide. And we'll see how we do. That is a 3 and a 5 from Marin. That's a 4 and a 2 from the environment, though. So he's like, I really can't believe they're sending me out here for this sort of thing. The Adventurers Guild said this would be an easy one, and here I am. And as he's complaining, he looks up and the color drains from his face. And down the hill comes this giant, like, wave of snow. And he immediately just, like, he goes to dive out of the way, and his foot catches, and he starts to roll. But because he initially dove to the left, he starts like thump, 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 and he rolls far enough down the hill, like kind of angled left to roll out of the way of this. All of my gestures are out of camera here. He rolls far enough out of the way of this snow slide that he finds himself at the base of the hill, and the snow is like piled up behind him, well over his head, and he goes, "Well, we got out of that one, luckily." And we'll roll a d6 to keep moving. This time we got a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We run into the plot, and he goes, "Wow, it's a good thing we got out of this one." And immediately, right in front of him, as he's quipping like this, is the village chieftain, who we meet with. He agrees to give you shelter for the winter if you agree to help his men fight the frost giant Jarl, who has set up camp in a nearby ravine and has been conducting raids against his people of late. You have no choice but to agree and set off with him and his men. So the village chieftain goes, "Yes, that was certainly a close one. You seem like you need help. I'm certainly willing to, I'm certainly willing to host you at my camp in exchange for a little help of your own, if you will." And Marin kind of glances over his shoulder as if to imply, "How well am I going to be?" As if to imply, like, "Oh yes, I can certainly entertain your troops, as it were." But the village chieftain kind of waves him off and goes, "Now, no. As much as we are starved for entertainment around here, I need your aid in a different matter. You see, if you look across that direction," and Marin kind of like squints and puts his hand over his eyes. "If you look off in that direction, you'll see that there's a ravine that the snow blows down into," and Marin kind of nods, as if to say, "Go on." And then the village chieftain explains that this Jarl has been causing trouble pretty thoroughly lately. And so it falls to us to help him out with that. Oh, okay. That's interesting. I just read a thing from the rules, but before we resolve that, I wanted to point out that there's a few things I do around here. So on Friday nights we do a thing called paper cuts, where we read books aloud. And it's a podcast that you can go find in your favorite podcatcher. I personally really enjoy the episodes that are coming up now, coming up out of the third season fresh. Uh, in addition to those, uh, in addition to the episodes coming up out of the third season, these episodes that are coming up weekly, I'd also really suggest the Dracula episode. I think that's a really good one, and I enjoy it a lot. I put a little more panache into the editing, as it were, and I think it came out fantastically. Um, what else? Oh yeah, we have a YouTube channel around here where we post all the VODs. There's been VODs going up on every Saturday. It's really a great place to catch up on what you've missed. So, for example, if you wanted to dive into the joys of Nishmal's story, that'd be a great spot for it. But anyway, the thing in the rules that surprised me, we have roll 1d6 plus 2. You have that many Vikings you can use to fight enemies. So we have 6 plus 2. We have 8 Vikings. We have 8 Vikings. You may spend a Viking to add 2 to one of your challenge rolls, or to ignore all resolve loss from a challenge roll. Each time you use a Viking, add a third extra d8 despair trait to the environment on your next challenge roll, supposedly to represent the way these people are helping you. So we will roll to move forward and see how we go. That's a 1. So we immediately find that we are in the throes of distrustful companions. So as we start trudging, you can really all of these 8 Vikings are kind of looking at Marin somewhat distrustfully. They're all kind of giving him like a little bit of an eye, like, what are you supposed to? What are you supposed to be? Why are we helping you? What's your deal? And Marin just kind of rolls his eyes and tries to. It's true, spend a Viking. Isn't that odd phrasing? Marin just kind of like rolls his eyes and tries to win them over with a few little plucked notes from a lute that he's carrying over his slung into his bag, and he just like the and we'll see how the playing goes. I say we roll equipment to see how it goes, just how the lute responds to the temperature and everything, and then I say we're gonna roll bardliness to see how he performs. So that's a 4 and a 5 from the environment, and a 6 and a 1 from our intrepid Marin. Thankfully, 6 outpaces 5, so uh, despite the stiffness of Marin's fingers as he attempts to play this lute, uh, really inhibiting the swiftness of the notes that he particularly wanted to play, um, the thankfully the lute has I'm not thinking of the right thing when I say lute. Lyre is what I'm thinking of. Lyre, is that how you say it? Lyre is what I'm thinking of, and thankfully it has adjusted to the cold quite well. unlike some of our party here. So in Japan, people refer. Hang on. My stream chat is all scrungled on my screen. So in Japan, people refer to buffet restaurants as Viking. Turns out a long time ago there was a famous buffet chain called Viking. Some people who never grew up with one can still call it that and not know why. That's actually genuinely fascinating. Um, that there's certain things that we call brands that really aren't anymore, and God, there's this like specific Midwestern example that's like a perfect like restaurant example that I can't think of, but that's really interesting. It's like we have eight. I'm just now picturing uh the chieftain just being like, I know exactly what'll help you. And the camera pans over to Marin and he's dragging eight buffets behind him. They're just like steaming like steaming hot air into the world and the food's slowly like freezing over. That's really funny. That's neat though. Anyway, let's roll d6 to move forward. We move one step forward and immediately find that we are bogged down in mountain slopes. Uh, so as we're, I can't not picture us dragging, these Viking buffets. No, as we're immediately trudging along and dwink 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 dwink, terrible lyre music playing. Uh, we're just trudging our way up these mountain slopes. These Vikings are very used to the environment, so they're just kind of like carrying on. Marin's like, I'm not very well adapted to this sort of thing, fellows. And so I'm gonna have him roll. I think I'm gonna have him roll adventurership. Like this is attempting to interface with an environment he's unused to. Uh, and I also feel like in order to not fall behind, I feel like he should roll swiftness. So the environment rolled a 1 and a 2. The dice really like me tonight. We rolled two threes. So uh, he says, oh, well, I'm not quite used to this environment, fellows. And one of them just kind of like silently hucks a pair of snowshoes at Marin, and he goes, oh, these will work quite nicely. And he kind of settles down for a second to strap them on and then it has to like trump. But he's floating on top of the snow now because he's so small and light. It's very easy for him to just continue on. In comparison, everyone else is kind of trudging up this mountain through the snow. We'll move 5 paces forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We fall into a chasm of ice. Oh dear. So as he's walking along, he's finally like, yes, now I can keep up, and he's waddling along in his snowshoes, and all of the other Vikings just kind of give a little hop, little leap over this chasm of ice, but not Marin, not Marin. He immediately falls directly down into this chasm of ice. Like there's the camera like kind of significantly pans over like a little divot in the snow that most people and like you can see a little bit of blue ice poking through this little divot. But Marin does not notice and immediately falls through this thin crust of snow, just boom, down into this chasm of ice, and he goes, "Oh dear, I seem to be down here alone. Help me!" So I feel like he's going to be rolling gregariousness to try and convince these Vikings to help him out. And once again, I like the idea of adventurership, kind of representing him playing into an environment that's unfamiliar. So we got a 1 and an 8. You all saw that. I fumbled the dice as I was moving them. The environment got a 6 and a 2. So he goes, "Oh dear, could one of you help me out of here?" And one of the Vikings just kind of like huffs somewhat silently and yeets the end of a rope down, and we're gonna struggle. We're gonna struggle our way out of this chasm of ice, thankfully unscathed for the most part. We rolled to move and moved one piece ahead, which means there are now winter wolves we have to fight. So we're gonna need 2d8, and we're now in combat. Somebody cue the so he's like scrabbling his way out of there, and as he comes up over the rise back onto this plain of ice and snow, um, there is the howl of wolves, and all the Vikings kind of look very significantly uh, back at Marin as if he's going to have a way to repel these wolves. Uh, and so I think called to the stage, uh, Baron is going to try and charm these wolves away from the area using his bardliness, and that fits so perfectly. I feel like he's also going to roll halfling to see if he has enough breath to sing. In the sense of like he needs to be able to like breathe in and really get down under these notes to try and like out howl the wolves as he's like playing notes on the lyre. So that's a 6 and a 10 from the that is fantastic. There's a 6 and a 10 from our boy here. And so he sings a he sings a song. He sings a song the of the glories of those who can repel wolves, and how important it is that the wolves do not waste their time and their effort on the difficulty that this adventuring party would produce them. That they are much better spent. Uh, they're much better spent. Their talents are much better spent performing their predations on something else different. And he's carrying on and kind of stumbling over his words, trying to improvise, and it doesn't really go well. But then he lets out a prodigious howl right at the end, and all the wolves you hear like an answering howl a few times. Uh, and it turns out that the howl he did was one that sort of signaled to these wolves that there is better prey elsewhere. So, despite the fact that he was not going to win them over with his with his particular song choice, he wound up scaring them off anyhow. So let's roll a d6 to see how we move. That's a 1. So we immediately find that we rise above a tree line. So I think this means literally like the tree line, in that like as you're climbing a mountain, there's a certain line beyond which there are no trees. And he kind of notes, oh dear, we I've never been up this high before. What does it mean when there are no more trees? And he kind of uh, is trying to mug his way out of doing this, but the Vikings will probably hear nothing of it. Something just went over. Knock over, cat. Oh, you knocked the book off. Yeah, I know. I'm so mean. Okay. So the environment gets a D8 and D6, and I feel like he's trying to worm his way out of this. So I feel like that's a very gregarious action to take. It's like, I don't need to be doing this, but I feel like it's also very dim-witted for him to be uh trying to talk not only himself but these Vikings out of it. And so away we will go, rolling with wit and gregariousness, and we rolled a 6 in comparison to the environment's 3. So we just keep on going. The Vikings, there are no trees here, you see, because they parked up the wrong mountain. That's an incredible piece of dialogue that I feel like suits this character. perfectly. He's like, I think we're barking up the wrong mountain. You see, the trees have the right idea. you know. But we'll roll and move 5 spaces ahead. One, two, three, four, five. Icy remains of a battlefield. Interesting. So the environment has 2d6. Um, and I feel like Marin has to roll. I'm gonna say adventurership in this particular case because he's trying to. I think he's trying to get as much of the treasure for himself in comparison to these Vikings. So I'm gonna have him roll swiftness and adventurership against the environment to see if what sort of treasure he gets after these Vikings come up over the rise before him and start picking through everything. So the environment got a 4, and the highest number we got was a 3. So we're just gonna take one resolve damage here, as he like there's this almost comedic montage of Marin trying and failing to grab like these frost laden pieces of glittering armor and like trying to like grab a beautiful necklace off of somebody, and like each time he goes to grab, the Vikings are either like grabbing it before him and giving him a glare, or just stopping him from taking it. And he's like, oh, but I know, I don't know, over and over. And that really strikes a blow. So I think at the end of the day, the only thing he really grabs is like this little unassuming necklace that has a pearl attached to it. Strong pearl necklace. And that's the one treasure he gets. Then we move 5 more spaces. One, two, three, four, five. Oh, into a plot point. So we're trudging along, and Marin several times tries to go a shorter path than the Vikings have laid out. He's like, well, why don't we go this way? Why don't we go that way? And every time they kind of like scruff him and pick him up and put him back in line. And each time he does that, the camera kind of like pans over significantly, and we see that there's like a group of sentries, and like there's a cloud of ravens, and there's like a bunch of stuff that could really cause some dire harm to our boy here. But thankfully the Vikings kind of steer him out of all of the harrowing situations that he almost bumbled his way into. And so after said harrowing journey up the mountain, the group comes within sight of the Frost Jarl's fortress. It'll be difficult to enter. The chieftain whispers over to you, saying that if you've never fought giants before, you should keep out for an attack from overhead. Choose one of your traits. When fighting a frost giant, you may add +1 to its roll. So I think in the chieftain telling us this, I think we get to. That's immediately like I think that's immediately a combat advantage to Marin, and I think he's the type to have fought a lot of it. I think he's the type to have fought a lot of stereotypical RPG enemies, given the adventurership. Uh, Given that he is an adventurer and he's been adventuring for at least a little while, he's fought a lot of the stereotypical like giant crabs and giant spiders and giant giant ants and giant amoeba one time. So he's thinking, oh, well, it's just another giant thing. I'll certainly be able to keep an eye out for any falling stones. And so we'll add +1 to adventurership when fighting a frost giant. I like this a lot. This is like a really great like secondary. I picked these in the right order. This Fortress of the Frost Giant Jarl is perfect for the second adventure because we're getting like bonuses as we go. Frost Giants. So we're gonna roll to move forward. We're gonna roll a d6 here. We're move three steps forward, and we're going to dodge frost giant patrols. So this time, Marin having learned his lesson earlier with all of that montage work, now is keeping a much closer eye out for the sort of thing that would suggest that there are giant patrols. So he's like kind of stepping away from the giant footprints in the snow and like listening for the calls of like hunting horns and the like that sort of thing. And I feel like we need to evade patrols with swiftness. We need to move as fast as the other people around us so that we don't get caught by these patrols. And I feel like adventurership without the bonus, obviously, I feel like comes into play here because he's trying to avoid enemy guards. And if you're adventuring, you need to avoid the big bad's guards. And he's gotten caught by giant amoeba patrols once before. It was a whole thing. He had to go into a colossal sized giant and like fight its immune system. It was awful. So we rolled a 6 and a 4, and the environment rolled a 6 and a 2. So we've tied, so we take the two highest numbers and roll them again. That's a 6 and a 1. I don't want to take 5 damage. So we could use a Viking. We could eat this buffet and ignore the resolve loss from this roll, which I think that's very apt, given the way things have gone previously. I think he's trying his best to keep an eye out. And he's like, I know where these guys are now. They're big. They're easy to spot. And then he's about to like walk directly into the path of a patrol. And like the Vikings know the patrol is much better than them, so they just kind of grab him. They like scruff him again and put one of them puts him on his Marin on his shoulders and just kind of like walks along, letting that happen. So we have 7 Vikings. Oh my gosh. I thought I muted this alarm for Tuesday. Did I do that? Apparently not. Hang on. I'm gonna mute that alarm for tonight too because it'll come up in 30 minutes and it'll bother me. You will have to excuse me. I have alarms set so that I remember to do my daily tasks. But we now have 7 Vikings so that we don't take damage there. And then we're gonna roll to move forward as these Vikings begrudgingly carry us throughout this adventure. So we move 4 spaces forward. 1, 2, 3, 4. As we're walking, we come to a drawbridge over a chasm, and this is at this point, the Vikings are all getting a little antsy that we haven't run into any trouble yet. That this is going so well so far, and then they come up upon this drawbridge, and and they all kind of look at each other, and then they look down at Marin, and one of them, and the chieftain rumbles, "You go first. You're light." And they kind of prod him forward, and he goes, "Well, no, oh, okay." And so we're gonna roll swiftness to see if we can get across the drawbridge fast enough. So that it doesn't break or get withdrawn. And I think we're gonna roll halfling because I've implied that it involves his weight a little bit. No, Sven, I said 7. There are 7 Vikings now. Pay attention, Sven. It's true. Um, but we're gonna roll halfling to see if he can remain light on his feet well enough to not make the drawbridge creak. The environment rolled an 8 and a 2, but Marin rolled an 11 and a 6, so we well outpaced this. So I think he just kind of like tightens the straps on his bag and tucks his leer into a little pocket that's designed for it and just over the drawbridge, and there's nary a sound. It is just whisper quiet, and the drawbridge kind of swings. I'm picturing like a rope drawbridge that they can kind of untie like they have like set up so they can untie from the opposite end and yank back, and so it's kind of like swaying back and forth from Marin's passage, and he kind of beckons the rest of the team like, come on, come on, and we'll move 4 spaces forward. 1, 2, 3, 4. We find ourselves in the entry hall of the fortress. So as he's unplugged the amp. Um, as the party kind of makes its way across the drawbridge, we all kind of like the camera like kind of pans up for a moment, looking at the snow, and then it pans back down, and we're suddenly the in the entry hall of this huge looking fortress. Like it's carved into the mountain, and the doorway just like dwarfs everyone in the party as it looms up and up and up, and the doors kind of like open, and everyone kind of winces at the noise, and then they see the glittering piles of treasure in the entryway, currently unguarded, as we can hear the sound of the guards doing something off camera. Uh, Maybe they're playing cards. Maybe they're they're engaging in the honored frost giant tradition of whack bonk, where you all stand in a circle and you all whack each other with a big stick, and whoever gives up first loses. And so we hear from a distance, echoed more resonantly by the cavernousness of this hall, just your turn, Grog. Oh, your turn, Grung. And they're all and and as they're trading blows, there are 2 more giants that are chanting whack, bonk, whack, bonk, whack, bonk, whack, bonk. And I think we I think the camera kind of like zooms in on the Vikings, and they're all looking at Marin to decide whether it's a good idea to try and steal some of this. So I feel like it's a wit decision. Uh, can he does he think it's a good idea to steal from from these giants as they are actively engaged in beating each other up? And you know what? Just for fun, I'm gonna roll swiftness to see if he can swipe fast enough, uh, fast enough between these blows so that they don't get noticed while they're going whack, bonk, whack, bonk. That's 2 5s, but that's a 6 from the environment. I think I'm just gonna take the 1 resolve damage. So I'm gonna take 28. I'm gonna take 1 damage, and we're gonna be at 28 resolve. And we hear whack, bonk, whack, bonk, and then one of the guards goes, "Wait a minute, whack, bonk, stick broken. I go get a better one." Clump, 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 and the Vikings scatter like throughout the hall, and they all don't get noticed. But Marin was trying to sift through some of the piles of treasure because he had heard that uh, one of the legendarily well crafted leers had been stolen from the college by frost giants many and many years ago. So he was looking in the treasure hoards for this legendary leer, and the the frost giant guard picks up a huge, like, gilded mace as Marin is diving for cover. And so he only just barely escapes notice as he dives into this pile of coins. And the guard goes, "This is much better for whack bonk." Boom, 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 boom. And stomps off. So we just find that and Marin kind of like shoves some coins into his pocket, And that's the coin. That's the treasure we get there. Some coin. Sorry, I'm just picturing whack, bonk, whack, bonk. Sometimes I make myself laugh, and it. I'm just picturing like a group of like 4 or 5 frost giants, and two of them like the other two that are just sitting there chanting whack, bonk, whack, bonk. Were actually smart enough to have bowed out. Uh, very early in the process, but the other two were not very bright. And so the other two, since the other two were not very bright, they're trying to win Whack Bonk. Uh, and they don't realize that winning at Whack Bonk means you don't pass out and your buddy passes out and you are also in horrible, horrible shape. And it just doesn't go well. In fact, I like this a lot. The other two are chanting like whack, bonk, and then we hear very distantly like a whoo, and then a clang from the like a resonant clang from this mace, and the first giant we heard saying "you whack, you bonk" first, Grog. Just we hear him go oh, and he passes out and the other guy goes, "Yes, I win whack bunk. I best at whack bunk. Yes." And they use the cover of the giant that is celebrating winning whack bonk to where it's the whole group kind of weaves their way further into the fortress, and we find that having penetrated the Jarl's fortress, it won't be long before the bodies of the guards and sentries the group has dispatched are discovered and the alarm raised. You need to find the Jarl and kill him while you have the element of surprise. So I think that the other three guards kind of disperse after Grung loses the game of Whack Bonk, and so nobody really knows that the guard was losing at Whack Bonk. And so another guard that's like on patrol that's about to walk into the entry hall to relieve the 4 guards that were playing Whack Bonk finds this passed out guard and goes, adventurers must be here. And so our element of surprise will only last so long. We move 5 spaces forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We find that we run into a chance frost giant encounter. So we have to roll a d10 from the environment now. Um, I think this is really good. We like as the guards are changing. I think the guard that finds us is Grog, who won the game of Whack Bonk and is now like need more thing to hit. And we come around like a corner and we're like the whole group is kind of like oh man oh geez we haven't been caught for a long time, and then the guard goes you there you small not supposed to be here, and everybody goes so I think this is definitely a combat role, so I feel like adventurership is on display here, and uh I think immediately Marin is going to try to distract this frost giant from attacking the rest of the group who are here to actually solve the problem, and he just got roped into it. And so I feel like he's going to pull once more his lyre out of his bag and start trying to play a tune. So we'll see. This frost giant has 8 health, but we get to add 1 to our adventurership roll. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. The environment rolled an 8 and we rolled an 8. And so on ties, we roll the tide dice again. So the environment rolled an 8 and we rolled a 4. I feel like this is definitely wait a minute. So what do we get from our Vikings? We can add 2 to one of our rolls or ignore resolve loss. and then we add a despair to our next. I think just immediately Marin just kind of goes. He looks at like the biggest Viking, and as he's playing, kind of gets behind the big Viking and starts shoving him like, "You go deal with this. We'll run." Uh, and like the rest of the group is very hesitant, but like Marin is like, "Please go. We only have so much time." Is like he's trying to communicate with the notes and songs that he's doing. And so he like kind of just the sacrifices this Viking to not take resolve loss there, but the rest of the group is like, why did you do that? We still need to fight him. And so like as Marin is trying to run away, the rest of the group is still trying to fight these guys. So I think swiftness is in order here because he's trying to run away, and I think gregariousness, it's not the best idea. He's trying to be very egregious in running away while the rest of the group handles this guy. So we rolled an 8, and the highest the environment rolled was a 7, and fittingly it was in the despair. So the frost giant takes 1 damage as one of the Vikings just kind of like takes out like some kind of like heavy club and boonk, bonks him over the head, and the Viking goes, "My turn for or the Viking goes, "Oh," and like the frost giant goes, "You're not very good at whack bonk," and comes around with a mace, and we'll see how that resolves. Uh, I think once again, I think Marin has not noticed any of this happening, is still trying to run away. So we'll just roll as is, and we'll remove the despair die once we. Was that always an 8? Was this one always an 8? Whatever, it's an 8 now. Uh, so Marin finally notices that that the Viking crew is getting wailed on. So first of all, let me update her Viking count. We have 6 Vikings. I think that fittingly that Viking just goes down. He's like, "You're not very good at whack bonk." And this Viking just, oh. The tale of the decreasing Vikings became the first oral tale of the Oompa Loompas. That's really good, Greg. Um, so I think finally, Marin whirls back around and is like, "I need to do something to inspire these folks. They are much better at fighting than me." And he starts playing like an inspiring, rousing ballad that these Vikings know. And I think he's attempting to use his bardliness to inspire them. And I think he's trying to do it in a way that like appeals to adventurers. So we'll see. We'll roll adventurership here. So the environment rolled a 7, but we rolled a 10. So this frost giant takes how much? 3 damage. So that's 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. So it's got 3 health left after this. And the rousing tale actually does inspire the Vikings. You see them stand a little straighter, and one of them draws like a great sword. And the frost giant is like stumbling and covering their ears, like, "This music bad," and it's just not going very well. And so I think we're just gonna roll again the same way to see once if we can. Oh, the environment rolled a 10, and we rolled a 6. So that's 4 damage though. Well, we could use one of the Vikings. Honestly, I think again, this is a very self-serving character. I think Marin is like in the back, like, "I'm doing so good at inspiring these people," and like he has not noticed that another one of these Vikings got lost at whack bonk and is like prone on the ground bleeding. He's like, I'm going to come out of this fine. And the Vikings are like, we're not coming out of this fine. We're gonna go again. Oh my gosh, no, a 10 again. No. Okay. Um, but I rolled a 7. I think Marin like eventually in the space of a couple more missed swings from this frost giant notices what's happening and tries to like intercede a little bit. I think he tries to like jump in the path of a blow and it kind of like glances off of him instead of one of the Vikings this time and he takes 3 damage, but the Vikings are now like, oh, well, the Vikings are now like, well, at least he's going to try and do something. And I think rather than adventurership, I think we're gonna roll halfling here to see how well he weathers a blow as he's trying to continue to inspire these Vikings from amidst the fray now. That's a 3 from the environment, so he like strums he like as this mace is coming down at him, he mutes the perfect strings and strums this huge power chord, and the frost giant kind of stumbles back like, oh my ears, and in that stumbling back, the one Viking who's armed with a broadsword like steps in and perfectly lands beneath this guard's ribs, and he goes, "Ugh, ugh." And the frost giant guard slumps over, and the Vikings all kind of like pat Marin on the back as they start running to see if they can get far enough into this place before the alarm is properly raised. So we're gonna move 5 spaces forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where we find a frost giant soldier. Um, Unfortunately, as we're rushing forward, these oh no, we have to roll 2d10 now. Um, Unfortunately, as we're rushing forward, we run into the back of the next patrol, and this soldier has a sword that just dwarfs the entire, like a whole Viking. And Marin looks up and up and up in terror. And I think I'm going to have him roll wit to resist running away again. Uh, I'm also going to have him roll swiftness to determine if he runs away, how fast he's running away. That's a what? Oh, that's a okay. That's a 2 and a 5 from the environment, and 2 6s from Marin. And so this frost giant soldier immediately takes 1 damage, so it has 9 health now. I think Marin actually, this is really funny because we rolled really high on swiftness and wit. I think he goes to run away. He like turns to run away, only to find that the only that only to find that the Vikings were expecting this, and they keep they like spin him around the rest of the way, and so Marin charges in, and he starts to rummage. He's like rummaging in his pack, and like as he's pulling something out of his bag, it's perfect. His fist lands directly on this frost giant's, like, you know how there's like a little reflex point in your knee. I think that's like where this punch lands, and he's got an item in his hand, and the frost giant goes and like kind of collapses a little bit because his knee has reacted and he wasn't expecting it to. So I'm gonna have Marin roll equipment here, and I'm gonna have him roll adventurership because I feel like unintentionally he's trying to do an adventuring thing here. So we get +1 to adventurership here, +1 to our D8. That's a 4. So the 5 is our highest roll, but is that a 70 or a 10? Wait a minute. Hang on. 40. 50, 60. Okay, 7. The 7 is obviously a 7. So that's a 1 and a 3 from the environment. So we outpace the environment by by 2. Uh, so this thing takes 2 more damage as the equipment is what comes in handy. I think this is I think there's a potion of frost resistance in Marin's hand, and as he's like unintentionally punching this thing in the shin, it like breaks in his hand, and like the frost resistance like starts to spread up his arm, and it does a little extra damage to this frost giant. And he goes, "Well, I might be better at this than I thought." And so I think he's being very I think he's now going to try and do something along the lines of like, what is he gonna do? I want him to roll bardliness, right? Because like he's trying to do a bard thing. I think he's going to try and insult this frost giant. Like, well, you're much easier than your friend previously was, and I'm gonna have him roll bardliness to try and like insult this man hard enough that he takes damage. But unfortunately, I think we're gonna have to roll wit for that. So we'll see how it goes. So that is a 4 and a 2 from our boy here. Unfortunately, it's a 9 for the environment. I would want to take that damage though. We would take 4 damage. We would take 5 damage. That's a lot of damage. You know what? I'm gonna re-roll. I'm gonna spend a stamina to re-roll here, and I'm gonna have him re-roll his bardliness roll here, just in hopes that he comes up that this actually does hit home a little better. That's a 1. That's a 1, gang. So this flops so badly that one of the Vikings has to dive in to prevent the like this frost giant. I think actually like slowly recovers their feet and just tries to punt Marin just completely into the wall, and one of the Vikings like sees this happen rather than Marin, and one of the Vikings just uh dives in to try and like protect Marin, and they get kicked. These poor Vikings, they're really going through it. And I think Marin, seeing that the insults are not working, instead rummages through his bag to try and find an actual weapon and do some actual attacking. So I'm gonna have him roll equipment and adventurership, depending on whether what he pulls will actually matter. He says, "Oompa doompa doompity din." Dang it, my chat. Oompa loompa doompity din. What do you get when you roll a 10? Possibly the crew gets smaller again, and the alarm has been raised, and a Viking erased. Don't run about like a bunch of scared mice, for you shall be at the mercy of the dice. Oompa loompa. I didn't remember much of that tune, but that's very good. Thank you, Gariki. Uh-oh. That's not good, gang. We just rolled a 10 from the environment. I'm gonna use a stamina to re-roll here and see once if we can take a little less damage. So I think he's rummaging through his bag, and what he pulls out is not like useful as a traditional weapon, but it's like I'm picturing like kind of a grease you would use to like grease something on an instrument, or like a piece of like rosin, or like something slippery that he's trying to throw under the foot of this thing, and it just straight does not work. He tries to like toss this like chunk of like violin rosin that he found in his bag underneath this thing's foot, and I think the frost giant does actually trip over it, but it also brings down a fist on Marin, and he goes, "Ah!" And he goes, ouch, as he gets nailed with this colossal fist that's probably bigger than he is. And he takes 6 damage. Oof, owie, ouch. So I think I'm going to have him roll halfling, just in the sense that he's trying to resist damage as now he's the target. And I think I'm gonna have him roll Bardliness as he's gonna just try and like put this guy to sleep. I think with like a sort of a lullaby type thing, like, oh, this man will no longer be a problem strum if he's deep within a dazed, glazed sleep strum. That's a 9 and a 6 from the environment, and that's a 6 and a 1 from the halfling. I'm gonna spend the stamina to reroll that 9 because I think if we get a tie here, that would work. Come on, low roll, baby. Give me a low roll. That's cocked. Okay, we all know that was a 1, though. Okay, so this is a 50. So that's a 5. So we tie, so we get to roll these 2d10 again. What's his name, Sven? Oh, that poor guy is Stain. Yeah, he's gonna be a Stain if we fail. Oh, 2 9s. We've tied again. Okay. That's one more. That's a 3 from the halfling. In Bardliness. So I think he starts to play like a lullaby, and I think the this guard has not been, or this soldier has not been sleeping very well lately, and he's like, he starts to sway a little bit as he is being lulled to sleep. But unfortunately, him swaying means he could fall on Marin and do damage. So we're gonna roll again. That's a 3 and a 6 from the environment. That's a 6 and a 1 from the halfling. So we once again we roll a tie, so we need to roll again. Ooh, let's go. That's a 10 from Marin and an 8 from the environment. So he's once again like, oh. He heaves like this giant yawn. The frost giant soldier heaves this giant yawn, and Marin can tell that when this frost giant breathes out, it's going to be a giant cloud of frost that he needs to get out of the way of. But he's still so occupied playing this lullaby that I don't know that he has a way to get out of the way. But we'll see. We rolled an 11 and a 7 from the halfling, and a 9 and a 1 from the environment. So 9, 10, 11. That's two more damage. And Marin just barely like skitters out of the way in this little tight hallway as this big plume of frost just lurches its way through the hallway, and the Vikings all kind of like tighten their furs in close and start trying not to shiver. And this frost giant is like almost asleep. It's swaying heavily, and Marin's like trying to improvise lullaby lyrics that would work for a frost giant, and depending on how this roll goes, I'll see what he says. This is a 6 and a 9 from the environment, and a 6 and a 5 from Marin. Um, I kind of want to I want to spend a stamina to reroll. I'm gonna say spend a stamina to reroll halfling here because he's trying to breathe in deeply, and that's dangerous if you don't do it right in cold air. Unfortunately, I rolled a 4, so that's not gonna help. So instead, I think one of the poor Vikings again, like Marin starts to cough, and the frost giant like blinks a little more awareness into its face, like, "Oh, why are you coughing?" And one of the Vikings, I think, tries to like splash some. I think one of the Vikings tries to like do. What does the Viking try to do? I think the Viking tries to like harmonize with Marin to try and get the frost giant to go to sleep, and it's just horrible. It's like caterwauling, and and the Frost Giant goes, "You're not very good." Swipe, and this Viking is just like crumpled against the wall, like, "Oh, I knew I should have taken those singing lessons." So unfortunately, we have to add a D8 to the environment roll because we've used one of our Vikings. But we rolled 2 9s from our halfling and only 1 9 from the environment. So we get to roll both of these dice and only one environment dice in the case of this tie. I rolled 2 1s and the environment rolled a 9 again. I'm gonna spend a stamina to re-roll the environment because I think that like I'm picturing like this lullaby as it goes on. It's like continuing to cast. Uh, it's continuing to cast like magic into the room, and one of the things that like a sleep spell does is make it warm in there. So it's kind of like playing against the uh what the what the frost giant needs to sleep. That's a 5, so we're gonna take 4 damage as we're gonna take 4 damage as the frost giant like properly falls to his knees, and the big boom kind of like startles Marin as though he thinks he's going to get hit, and so it's just kind of like it's shaking his resolve a little bit. He's just gonna keep trying. It's getting almost uncomfortably warm in here, and like some of the Vikings are starting to sway to the music. But we rolled a 6 and a 10 in comparison to the 9 and 3 from the environment, and it's just like the the frost giant is like curled up on the floor and starting to like almost half snore, and we're almost there. Oh no, that's a 10 and a 6 from the environment and a 5 and a 3 from our boy here. I think I'm gonna spend a stamina to re-roll the 10 from the environment just in hopes of getting anything. I need 1 damage and then this guy's done. That's a 5, that's a tie. Oh wait, no, the environment rolled a 6. Uh I'll take 1 damage here. I'll take 1 damage here. As he's just like, come on, come on. He's thinking like, come on, go to sleep, go to sleep. Oh, well, that one fell out of my hand, but that 4 is valid, so. Oh, let's go. We finally rolled a 9. So this frost giant is and the last line of this so Marin, why is your family named Tedpeg? Funny story, Sven. uh I think the last line of this lullaby that finally sends this frost giant off to sleep is, and you'll play whack-a-ponk in your dreams. And the frost giant goes, mm-hmm, and like puts their head down on their hand and finally goes to sleep after what feels like an eternity of uh, an eternity of uh, doing this lullaby, and like the group immediately just barrels onward, trying to do anything to get out of here. And we move 3 steps forward and find an empty war room. There is a map spread across a massive table. Thankfully, no one is here. But taking in these plans, it's clear that the Jarl has plans of their own to enact some sort of conquest over the land. Uh, Unfortunately, we still have to roll 2d10 because of the frost giant soldier, and so Marin is like, we need to keep going. We need to get out of here, please. This is not a good place to be. They will definitely find us in here. and Marin's cries for them to run basically are going completely ignored as the Vikings here, along with their chieftain, are taking in the plans for how the Jarl wants to enact his conquest over not only their little village, but honestly the entire area. Um, and so Marin is trying to like urge them, like we need to go, we need to get out of here, we need to go, we need to go do something different. And so he's trying to be very like gregarious and convincing. Uh, I would say. And so I feel like, bards are stereotypically like a very like charismatic, like you guys should do what you guys should do what I'm suggesting. It's a great idea. And so I feel like gregariousness and bardliness are very much the stats in order here. And it's definitely not because we just spent like 10 minutes singing a lullaby to this previous frost giant, and like the atmosphere is very very tense as these Vikings are looking over the plans in the war room, trying to find a way to perhaps stop the Jarl. As Marin is like, we gotta go, we gotta go, we gotta get out of here, please. That is a 9 and a 2 versus a 4 and a 3. So we just Marin just kind of barrels out of here and moves on, and the Vikings like kind of hastily grab like they grab like the there's like that big map spread out, right, and it's got like writing on thin paper all over top of it, and so they kind of like snatch up all the thin paper and rush out of the room in hopes that that's enough to duplicate these plans later. And we move 6 spaces forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into the plot. We find our way to the throne room. The Jarl sits on his throne of ice, glowering. You need to sneak up on him. So how we sneak up on him is a matter of our next movement roll. So let's roll our movement and see how we sneak up on him. 1, 2, 3, 4. Silencing a giant who notices. So I feel like this is absolutely like this is literally Marin casting silence on this giant. Like this giant like notices them and is about to shout. Uh but Marin immediately like like plays a series of notes in rapid fire in an attempt to mute this man. And so I feel like bardliness is in order here, but I feel like swiftness is also in order here because he's trying to do it quickly. So we'll see if we silence the giant who notices or something else happens. Oh dear. We rolled 2 1s and the environment rolled a 10. So we get noticed, and Marin, very helpful to these Vikings that have been getting him out of scrapes, just shoves one of the Vikings forward in front of the Jarl. Uh, just shoves one of the Vikings forward in front of the Jarl, and the Jarl immediately is like, "Intruder, be gone!" and brings down a colossal fist on this Viking, who is just completely crumpled underneath his hand. So now we are having to fight the Jarl, who has 24 health. So we get to roll 2d12 because silencing the giant was also in order. So 1d12. Do I have a second d12 here? I don't know that I do. Really? Are you for real? I genuinely only have one d12 for the environment. I was so sure I had a second one. Let me grab one out of here real quick. Hang on. I know I have another D12 in here. See, that's the thing is I never use my D12s. You know what? This is for story games. This set was, well, this set, this, technically the D12 is not part of the set that was for that character. It's fine. Uh, so, this is gonna be fun. I think Marin's about to die at the hands of this Frost Jarl, but we're gonna find out. So the Jarl gets the frost-looking dice. I think I think Marin recognizing that this thing is like the frost giant. The Jarl is wearing like this very ornate looking crown, like a sort of a. I'm picturing like a sort of like woven wire type thing. You know how there's like those this sort of they're like little Celtic guys that are like a big. They're like what is it called? Bent wire Celtic jewelry arc thing. Bent wire Celtic jewel. It's like it's shaped like a little U, and it's got two like circles on the end, and then it's like kind of braided elsewise. What is the thing I'm thinking of? It has a real name, and like it's why we know that like a certain Celtic society could make wire. Oh, what's it called? It starts with a T. Here we are. This is what I'm thinking of. Torque. A torque is what I'm thinking of. So he's like, the Jarl has taken a torque that would normally sit on someone's neck and has like unga bungaed it into a crown, and the metal glitters from atop this Jarl's head. So I'm thinking of a torque. Thank you, Gariki. Um, the best I can describe a torque is it's you take one long length of wire and then make a bite in it, and the like little circular bite is at one end of it, and then they braid it all fancy, and then it has another bite at the end. Is the best way I can describe They're really cool, and like the historic examples of these torques are genuinely really like beautiful work. Like it must have been incredibly difficult, especially with pre-modern tools. It's wild to think about. But he's wearing this torque on his head, and it kind of glitters and glints a little bit. And Marin immediately goes, "I know what I'll do. I'll cast heat metal on that. I'll heat it up because he's not very good at fire damage." And so I'm gonna take. This is such a the best way I can describe it is murder tourist way of approaching this, that I feel like this is adventurership and bardliness. This is such a like, I'm an adventurer, I'm gonna cast heat metal on your armor. What are ethics? Type situation. That this is just perfect for this situation. So, whew. Okay. So we rolled a 10, and the Jarl rolled a 9. But I'm gonna have a Viking uh distract to do 2 more damage. So then we do 3 damage instead. Uh, I'm also going to use a stamina to reroll this d12 because I want to. So I think Merrick, as he's starting to like pluck the strings of his lyre to try and cast heat metal, he shouts to the Vikings, "Distract him! Distract him now! Do something, you buffoons!" That's even worse. I got a 12. And the Vikings like do not move initially. He's like, "Please, I have a great idea. This is gonna go well." I'm spending a second stamina to re-roll it again. I'm gonna take the 9 as it lies, apparently, but I'm gonna add 2 and use one of the Vikings, and then one of the Vikings is like, no. One of the Vikings is like, no. You've been doing nothing but throwing us out of the bus. We're not distracting him. And the Viking actually points at Marin and goes, he's your problem. And so that's how they add 2 to the damage, is the Jarl immediately fixes his ice blue eyes on Marin and grins because this very little man now has to fight this very big giant, and it's not gonna go well. And the Jarl starts to laugh, and he doesn't notice in his mirth the smoke curling from the torque on his head yet. So he takes 2 damage, or he takes 3 damage, but he doesn't quite notice it yet. And we're gonna roll again, and he's just gonna keep trying to cast heat metal while dodging out of the way of the Jarl. Wait a minute. Which D12 was the? Oh no, that was the D12 of the Jarl. So actually, he has 22 health because the Jarl gets +1. I'm sorry. He doesn't notice the 2 damage he takes though. Yet. Okay. The Jarl got a 2. The Jarl got a 3, and the environment got a 6. So we got a 7, and Marin is like, "Come on, really? You're not gonna help me out with this at all?" As he's trying to like back up and run away, as he's continuing to cast heat metal, and the Jarl kind of like finally stop. Like his laugh chokes in his throat as he notices the torque burning into his skull, and like he's like, and he's immediately scrabbling to try and get this off of him. Uh, but it's very difficult to find purchase because not only is the metal hot, it is bent around his head because he's kind of misused this torque. He's really made sure it was going to stick put on his head, and he's bent it tight. So we're actually doing pretty good here. This is better than Nishmal was doing coming into the final boss there. So, uh-oh, gang. That's an 11 and a 12 from the environment, and a 4 and a 3. So, oh, dude, would that kill him? Wait. So, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. That would take 8 damage. That's half of our health. Um, I think the Jarl, this is totally coincidental, actually, even. I think the Jarl, I think the Jarl rips the torque off his head, and it burns his hands. Uh, and he flings it at the chieftain as like a sort of improvised weapon, and it sizzles against the chieftain's chest, uh, and that like causes all of the other Vikings to scatter. The rest, this party that we had, is no more. The Vikings are bailing back to their village as fast as they can, because this was the last straw, as it were. But Marin doesn't take any damage, so that's nice. And realizing that the heat metal strategy is not going to work anymore, Marin starts plucking rapid fire, and we see a small globe of heat start to build in front of him. He's going to try to cast a fireball at this thing. Oop, that one would have fallen on the floor, so I'll re-roll it. Oh no, 11 and 12 again. Meanwhile, Marin has rolled a 6 as his highest roll. I'm going to do... Oh, I don't want to take 6 damage, though. I'm gonna do a stamina, and we're gonna see if he can get this spell off by re-rolling the 12 even, I think. Wait. Yeah, no. I'm gonna do 2 stamina and re-roll these 12s. Or these D12s. And we're gonna hope that fate smiles on me. Oh, it did not. That's a 13 and a 6. So 13 minus 6 is 7. So we just get like Marin just gets his health halved. Just boom. Like I think the Jarl like roars. I like this a lot. I think the Jarl roars in fury and like the cold washes over Marin and like only his plucking hand is saved from the damage because of that potion of frost from earlier. And I think now he's rolling halfling alongside bardliness here. Just because now he needs to resist the damage coming off of this Jarl. No, dude. As a 12 from the environment and a 7 from our boy. 2, 3. Oh no, that would do 5 health. I'm gonna use a stamina to re-roll the 12 that we rolled here. As Marin tries to like swiftly dive out of the way of this oncoming train, uh, oncoming train of a fist. I rolled a 12 again. The dice have spoken. uh, so we take how much damage? 7 versus 5. Or 7 versus 12 makes 2, 5. Oh my god. This man is dead. 7, 6, 5. So this man has 2 health. The Jarl just wallops Marin over the head, and he just kind of like I think in an echo of how poorly it was going for Nishmal last week. This this fist just comes down and pounds Marin into the stone and the hard packed snow that forms the floor. Marin is not doing good, gang. He should not have challenged the Jarl. As Guriki notes, he's out of his mind. He's out of his plucking mind to do this. Oh no. Okay, 6. Okay, 7 and 5 from the environment, but 9 from Marin means he actually gets the damage off. So he's like, as he's slammed into the ground, Marin tent peg. Marin is going to be a tent peg by the end of this. As he's slammed into the ground, he out on the leer, and the fireball explodes in the Jarl's face, and the Jarl takes 9, 8, 7, 2 damage. Whew, whew. The Jarl is looking a lot more healthy than our boy right now, and I think Marin, realizing he can't move, is going to try and cast like a spell that like sucks in those in the space he would leave behind and try and like teleport away and suck have the Jarl sucked into this damaging area. He's gonna try and like cast something that stays in the area to do damage and then teleport away. So we got a 7 and a 6 from our boy, and a 12 and an 8 from the environment. I'm gonna spend a stamina to reroll the Jarl here, in hopes that we do not die. That's a 2. That's a 3 from the Jarl, so our boy instead takes 1 damage as he whoosh out of the area, but he does get sliced on his way out. It doesn't do anything to the Jarl yet, but the Jarl stumbles forward into this cloud of like flinging pieces of what look like sharp glass. That's a 9 from the Jarl and a 9 from the environment and a 1 and a 4 from our boy here. So I'm gonna re-roll. I'm gonna spend 2 stamina. We are down to 1 stamina now in an attempt to re-roll and see if we can get anything out of our guy here. That is 2 3s. This man is dead. Yeah, there's really. I'm gonna spend our last stamina in hopes that he's gonna try and be able to clench his teeth and survive whatever the Jarl has planned for him. That is a 9. That's a 9. So oh, that means all three of these are tied, so we get to re-roll all three of these. Oh boy. Here we go. Oh, well, it's a 1 from the environment, but it's a 9 from the Jarl. So, he swooses his way out of there, and the Jarl, like, bellows in pain as all these slices happen, but it just does not phase this giant as he like scoops a chunk of the ground out of his lair and throws this absolutely colossal boulder at Marin, and Marin just watches it coming in at him, and he goes, "Well, I had a good run." Boom! The rock completely crushes Marin, and that is the last we see of this man. He is buried beneath the rubble, a fool who challenged someone who he should not have. Alas, alas, poor Marin. There he go. He did not make it. We had, if we had defeated the Jarl, we would have had to get through either his Winterwolf pet, enraged giants, blocking giants, summoned giants. One, two, three, four, five. And if we had rolled a 6, we would have dodged. We would have had to dodge spears. But if we did dodge spears, uh, we could have run into a raised alarm or been cut off by giants, or we could have scrambled down the mountain or hid in the woods and won. So honestly, if we had beaten the Jarl, we could have had a good shot at winning. So once again, we get really close to the end of this adventure. Unfortunately, our little guy wiped out once more. What a shame. Honestly, we were really close again to the end of this adventure. I think given how close we have gotten, honestly, it is wholly possible to win one of these. I think just the dice have to be a little more kind. I think we have to be a little more willing to use our good stats rather than our bad ones. But I really like this. I am enjoying the heck out of Dungeon Hero. I think it's really like it's a fantastic way to just throw together a character and go for it. Like this is such a like a great way to do like a solo dungeon crawl without having to boot up your computer, especially if you print the adventure. I'm also like looking at these adventures, I'm very tempted to write something myself. Like I had a great idea the other day where I think this was on stream where we could write like a since I'm inclined to write such small characters, literally have it be like a Honey I Shrunk the Kids type adventure where it is, you know, you are trying to work your way through a giant house that has giant sized problems for you because you are just little and small. I think that'd be really fun. I think it also would be really fun to do a take on that if you were to say do a greenhouse. I think that would be a really great environment for it. So I'm honestly I might look into like the structure of these a little bit and write some prompts myself next time. I might do this between streams as well and like try and run a guy through it on stream to see how we do. But you know, it seems like there's a pretty standard structure to these of like, oh, there's some adventuring, there's like these things, and occasionally as you get closer to the end of the adventure, there's more and more combat, and then there's one big boss encounter that you are forced into. Uh-oh. But I really like these. I think this is an absolute blast, and I'm really looking forward to getting to fix my sewing machine and printing all this out and just having it done physically entirely, not having to look at a screen at all. But I think on that note, R.I.P. Marin, he also got squashed. I think. Well, no, Nishmal got stabbed by a bunch of cultists, but Marin got squished by a big boulder. So alas, his journey comes to an end. But perhaps you out there could write write something from these fleeing Vikings perspective. I mean, the Jarl did seem like he wanted to expand his territory and fight in the villages, as it were. So that's a prompt that's technically open. We could work with. I think I'm gonna call it there, gang. I know it's a little earlier than we normally call it, but I think if we try and start another little dungeon hero here, we'll be here far over time. So I'm just gonna call it there. Definitely tune in this Friday for paper cuts. I have a really fun book planned. I think you're really going to enjoy it. It's by an author that we've seen some of previously. Uh, so, if you are a frequent listener of the show, it'll be really a great idea to tune in, especially if you liked our Astounding Stories episodes. I think it'll have something that you really enjoy. Um, in the meanwhile, feel free to check out the podcast feed. Like I said, those episodes are coming out weekly now, which has been a really great change of pace for not only me on the back end. I'm actually managing to get some episodes ahead in the backlog, but also it's really great for you, the user. Um, yeah, I think that's all my things. Have a great evening, everybody. I'll see you on Friday.